You get plenty of coverage of Oklahoma State football. You think you hear all the noise coming from Gallagher-Iba Arena when you get your Cowboy basketball news. But you don't.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
And there's a couple of Jordans here to fix just that. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast.
This could be a podcast. Anyone with a computer can make one.
And here are your hosts, Jordan Keene and Jordan Bishop.
Welcome into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, Triple Play Podcast Network. Jordan and Jordan, which one of our recent guests, JC Jones, didn't know both of our names were Jordan, but there we go. We enlightened her today.
Yeah, we make it easier for people to memorize. So that's what was funny as our guest today, Hannah Webb. It was kind of her first media availability, and she didn't know who to look at. She's like, "Who do I look at?" Like, let's look at the person who asked you the question. Like, it's well, you can look around if you want to, but it's there's no science to it.
Yeah. That's what Jordan, that's what is so fun about some of the sports that we cover on the podcast is they're so unassuming. They don't act like they're big shots like some of the other sports. Not really sure which sports those would be, but not the ones that we cover here on the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Nonetheless, Jordan, we'll get into soccer here. Hannah Webb, as you mentioned, joining the podcast coming up during the middle of it here on the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, Triple Play Podcast Network. Had a fun conversation with her, and as I said, Jordan, only took 3 guests to find our Chelsea fan. She's the Chelsea fan. That's what I'm talking about. Spoiled some of the interview there, but still listen. Fun interview with Hannah Webb coming up a little bit later on in the podcast. By the way, if you're listening to this and you say, well, I don't really like listening to Jordan and Jordan babble on about, whatever. I just want to listen to the fun guests that they have on and learn some actual things about a soccer player or a softball player or basketball, whatever sport we're covering that day. You can do that. Just scroll down. Now, I recommend listening to us because I think we break things down pretty well, pretty efficiently. But if you scroll down on YouTube videos, go into the comments in the information, the description of the video, I timestamp where we talk about everything. So if you want to hear us talk about Penn State, scroll down and it'll say recap of Penn State. Click the timestamp and it'll take you right there. It'll skip the rest of the video and go to that. If you want to just go to the Hannah Webb interview, I timestamp that. So click that. I make it easy. I make it easy on the people is what I'm trying to say. So you can go to that. If you want to keep listening though, we're going to break down that Penn State game, Jordan, and it was an impressive one on the road up in Happy Valley. Big win.
Yeah, magic of technology right there for the timestamps. But like we talked about last week, the Cowgirls weren't afraid. And they mentioned that leading up that whole week, going up to Pennsylvania, that they weren't afraid, that they figured they were a team that was closer than a lot of people thought. And they've proved it. And, like we mentioned, Penn State probably has a better overall team. That did not matter last week. The Cowgirls went up there. And you asked a really good question, Coach Carmichael, today about ball control, keeping them from making shots. And that's all you got to do. If you're a team that's playing on the defensive a lot, especially if you're going against a faster team than you are, you got to play ball control. You got to play the time, and they did. And they held it. They held it. And like I compared last week, it was kind of like in a boxing match. They let Penn State punch themselves out, and then they went for the killer shot there at the end.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Carmike, it's easy to say, right? If you're the coach or a player, it's easy to say we're not going to go up there to defend. We're not going up there just to play defense. We're going to go up there. We're going to try to attack. We're going to try to be the bright team. Try to be, play free and normal. Easy to say that, and then go up there and defend. This team did not do that. They did not sit back and defend and hold on for dear life and get to overtime and get a lucky goal. That was not what this was. Maybe in the first half, Penn State had better chances. Maybe. I'm not willing to 100% concede that. Second half, Oklahoma State dominated the game, dominated the good chances, and really if you look back on the game, and again, I know you don't have the Big Ten Network. A lot of people didn't, so not many people got to see the entire game. I was able to watch it, and this was a team that it was not luck. They were the better team on the night. They deserved to win, and soccer is a game where sometimes you deserve to win and you don't win. Sometimes a really good team, maybe you deserve to beat a really good team, but that really good team just has enough to beat you on the day. Oklahoma State was the better team. They deserved to win, and they won.
Yeah, what's that we say all the time about football, the prevent defense? If you're playing to not lose, then you're going to lose. Because that's the thing is, if the Cowgirls would just, let Penn State hold the ball, control it, and they just, pat everybody around the goal, eventually Penn State was going to crack through. But that's not the way you play them. You got to have your own attempts on offense. You got to have your own attacks, because even if you don't make them, you're keeping it out of Penn State's feet. You're keeping it out of their time. You're taking time away from them, because you have to attack. You have to keep attacking and try to break through the armor they have. Because if you just play to we're going home for dear life, like you mentioned, they're eventually going to find a way to beat you. You have to be the one coming out and attacking.
Right, and again, if you're a team that has aspirations to go somewhere in the postseason, like Coach Carmichael and his squad do, this is a team that can win come the end of the season. NCAA tournament time, this team can win. This team is good enough to find themselves in the quarterfinals or something like that. Once again, that Coach Carmichael's been in. I mean, he's been to Elite Eights with this team. So this team has that kind of quality. But if you're going to get there, you have to win the games, right? Like, you can't just defend and hope for a draw and hope to win in a penalty shootout. Now some matches end up going like that, but that can't be your mentality, in my opinion. And I don't think Coach Carmichael's ever going to come to the table with that mentality. He mentioned Olivia Dowell, and she's terrific at it. That's the one that I pointed out right after the match. I mean, she's not a freshman. Period. You look at a lot of the players that you're going to see this year in the Big 12. We've seen already. Now, Penn State has a freshman who has a chance, I think, to win probably National Freshman of the Year, the one that scored on Oklahoma State. She's terrific. She scored a handful of goals already against really, really good competition. She's really, really good. But Olivia Dowell was touch for touch with her during the Penn State match, and she just continues to be absolutely impressive.
Yeah, and you mentioned I didn't get to watch it. It was on the Big Ten Network, but the offense just continues to impress me, and the fact that they, I don't know how many shots they had in the Penn State game, but the fact that in Omaha they had 27 shots. I know you didn't only got one shot in. The fact that you're controlling it that much, I know it's an inferior opponent, but it just shows your offense is just continuing to get better and learning how to attack. And I think with that defense, we talked to Danny Greenlee today, and she said her job's been pretty easy because that back line has been so good for the Cowgirls that it's just made her job in net so much easier. So I think as long as you continue to improve your offense, the defense is going to carry you a long way.
There's no doubt, and it helps to have someone like Kim Rodriguez who can score game-winning goals the week after she was Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, she's all around terrific, and we've talked endlessly about her over the summer when she was with Mexico, and then the last couple of weeks she's been terrific. But no, you're right. You don't. I think I said this in the last podcast. You don't forget about Haley and Marlo, but it's easier to not miss them as much when you're scoring the goals that they are. And again, we could get to Big 12 play, and then all of a sudden everything goes dry, and they can't buy a goal. That could happen, right? Like these week in and week out, you may not be playing the caliber of Penn State like a blue blood every week in the Big 12, but Texas, TCU, Baylor, West Virginia, Iowa State struggled so far this year. Kansas in the top 25, not Kansas. Kansas State struggled a little bit, but Kansas is a terrific team. You're going to be facing top competition, and like Coach Carmichael said today on Robert's show on the radio side of things, the scheduling gods did nothing to them this year. Did them no favors this year. You got to go to Lubbock to start off, and then obviously TCU as well to start off that opening weekend. So again, been really impressed with this offense. Could it go dry? Yeah, I mean it could. It's soccer. Sometimes your entire team goes into goal scoring slumps. You hope that doesn't happen, but it can happen. So obviously we still have a long way to go, but thus far the offense has been really good for a team that maybe heading into the season we had some questions about.
Yeah, I know people may be thinking, oh, it's non-conference, it's Penn State, that they're not as good as they've been in recent years. They're still a top 15 team, and I think for this team how important it was, because going into this year, you mentioned there's no Haley, there's no Marlo. The last year Florida was a big win, but it was at home, and you had those seniors. This year, it's a lot of young people. It's a lot of inexperience. That was a big statement win on the road for your program that can help you out. And I know I'm looking at the glass half full right now because the team hasn't lost a match, but I think going into Big 12 play, you got to be looking to hopefully win the conference, at least compete for it based on that win against Penn State, because that is a lot of tenacity to go up there to do that, and it's a lot of confidence coming from that.
It came down to a couple of votes. that determined whether Kansas or Oklahoma State was going to be the top of the region. They do for the coaches poll, they break it down by region as well as a national poll, and it was only a couple of votes. And if you are the top Central Region team, I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't win the Big 12. And right now, Oklahoma State is right in that conversation, and they got to go do it, no doubt. No, you're right. This has to be a conversation now where, obviously, you got to finish Big 12 finish non-con play this weekend. Got to do it strong against a couple of really good teams, which they will do. Kennesaw State, maybe not really good. I probably overstated them. Yeah. But SMU is receiving votes, 29th or 30th in the poll if you expand it out to receiving votes teams. And that's going to be a really tough match against probably a Big 12 quality opponent. And you really start to get conference play going in terms of quality one match early. And then once you get into that, Jordan, I think this is a year we might be talking about a Big 12 championship team. Now, there's a lot of Big 12 championship quality teams on this campus that don't win Big 12 championships. You got to go out and do it. Big 12 is still a really tough conference. But no, I'm with you, man. The conversation, this is not the seventh best team in the Big 12. Right now, it's the best.
Yeah, I'm thinking that game against SMU is just going to be not a tune-up. It is I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's going to prepare you for it. It's going to be something that's not an easy step for you to get going. It's going to be a challenge that's going to prepare you for Big 12 play, because even when Coach Carmichael said SMU plays OU first this weekend, so he's going to be able to watch that match, see some tape from it against a team they've already faced in OU and drew with, but then also a team at SMU, they're going to see their tendencies, might help you out in that match. But I think it's overall like adding another Big 12 team to your schedule because it's just going to be nothing but good for you in your conference schedule.
So coming up this weekend, Kennesaw State coming up probably tonight as I post this. I'll probably post this on a Thursday morning. Kennesaw State tonight at Neil Patterson Stadium, and then SMU on Sunday, again at Neil Patterson Stadium as they round out the non-conference schedule. We will play Hannah Webb's interview right now. When we come back, I have one thing I want to sound off about. I'm pissed off about something related to the Cowgirl soccer team. I'll tell you about that coming up next. Carmichael would probably shake his head at me and say, it doesn't matter, we don't really care about this, but I do, because I'm in the media, and I'm not really a fan technically, but I mean I enjoy watching good soccer, and yeah, I'm pulling for the team that I'm covering. So yeah, I guess I am an Oklahoma State Cowgirl soccer fan. But we'll tell you about that. We'll talk about that on the other side. We'll also give you the ITA individual rankings that came out for tennis, and tell you a little bit about that on the other side as well, as we'll make the other side kind of shorter. Keep these podcasts at a manageable listening length for you folks out there as well. But coming up right now, Hannah Webb joined us at Neil Patterson Stadium, and here that is on the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Welcome into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, Triple Play Podcast Network. Jordan and Jordan with you down here at the Cowgirl kind of the locker room, just outside the locker room, Neil Patterson Stadium, and joined now as we continue with the Cowgirl soccer team by Hannah Webb. And Hannah, thanks for taking out a few minutes and joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So last week, Grace, the week before, JSC, we started with both of them. If you can take it back to kind of your recruitment and what drew you to Oklahoma State.
The first time I stepped on campus, there were no students here, but just walking around with my family, with Colin, I saw the facilities. I saw just kind of a lot of possibility here. One of my best friends since 6th grade had been committed to play here, and had kind of hyped this place up and told me that she really liked it and liked everything about it. And so my junior year in high school, I committed to play here and have loved every second of it since.
Now, part of the facilities is this. Your first full year moved in, locker rooms, all the amenities. What has this year been like in terms of the stadium?
This year has been incredible. This stadium is, of all the places that we've ever been to and traveled to for soccer, I've never seen a stadium or a field like this. And I'm not just being biased because this is my school, but this is honestly the best I've ever seen. The locker room is amazing. The field is top notch. I mean, really, we could not ask for anything better.
You mentioned you came here when there's no one here. Was it like a spring break visit, or what was that? You mentioned campus was empty.
I came, it might have been in the summer or Christmas break or a Sunday. It was something where not a lot of students were around, but I just got kind of a very quiet tour. But even then, I kind of loved Stillwater, and I loved everything about it.
Who was your friend? You said you was committed since 6th grade.
Cammie Huddleston.
Okay.
We actually played club soccer together for a little bit and basketball together. So I've known her for quite a long time.
So y'all just grew up on, kind of the same neighborhoods and everything?
No, she actually lives probably about an hour away from me. But somehow we ended up on the same solar team, and we played together for a couple of years. And we also played basketball together. So it was just nonstop. Cammie and I were very, very close, and there was a point where we were on separate teams, and I had heard that she committed to Oklahoma State, and when I was, kind of looking at different schools, she had mentioned Oklahoma State, and I was like, okay, let's look at it.
Your position is a wingback, and there's a lot of people that may know what that is, but I'm sure there's probably a lot that don't, because when you hear a wingback, it's like, okay, she's a back, but we've heard the winger, and that's an attacking term. So for anyone that doesn't know what it is, what is a wingback? Because it's a pretty important position when you talk about the position or the formation that Coach Carmichael likes to run. That you and Charmaine and Claire, you're a big part of that. Just tell us a little bit about some of the in-depth kind of intricacies of being a wingback.
So wingback is a very unique and interesting position because you're not. Your role is different from a typical flat back for outside back, and you're not necessarily an outside mid. You're kind of honestly at times you're a defender, but then you're also a midfielder, like an outside mid. And there are times when you're up in the box and you're forward, you're running up and down the whole time. But for a lot of teams aren't used to, defending a position like that. So I think it kind of throws a lot of teams off, and it really is a nice out ball. For that position, you do have to, run a lot, but it really puts us in great opportunities to exploit spaces that the other team leaves open.
When you played club or high school or growing up, was this something you'd ever played before? And if not, what was your position back then?
So I'd never played in kind of this 5-back before, but I had always been an outside back. We'd played a flat back 4, and I was an outside back. But the way my coach had me play, you were going inline to inline the whole game. So when we kind of transferred and I became a wing back, honestly, there wasn't much mentally that I had to do to adjust my thinking with that. There were just some, small tactical things, but that's how I was used to playing, so it really fit well for me.
So you already kind of had the attacking side of the game down, service and being on the weak side and all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was a big part of, at least for my club team, was our outside backs getting up and, getting services in and, joining the attack, and that is obviously a huge part of what we want to do here at Oklahoma State.
So you're talking about Coach Carmichael's offense, but what do you like most about playing for him as a coach and Coach Hancock and kind of what all they bring to the table?
Keep in mind I'm right here.
Honestly, they're great. I mean, they're always very supportive and positive and will help you when you need it. There have been times when I've reached out and asked for, hey, I feel like I'm getting in these positions and I'm not making the right decision. And they'll pull up video and they'll talk it through with me. And they're always willing to go, the extra mile to help me as a player. And I realize there are 30 of us, but they really are caring and want you to succeed as a player.
Do you feel that, we've asked kind of everybody's come on here because we cover Oklahoma State women's sports, that this is a university where there's a lot of that care for the sports here, for female athletics, and that kind of every single program is doing well or is already at a high level?
I think we have great programs here at Oklahoma State, and I think we have great coaches. I think we have players who are really dedicated to their sport and to improving and have incredible work ethic. You meet a lot of other women's sports players just walking around campus or in the training room or whatever, and they really are just great people. You can tell, if you go into the training room, they're working hard at their rehab. If you see them around campus, you can just tell that they are really dedicated people, and I think that really speaks volumes about the kind of people that come to Oklahoma State.
Just overall, what do you like most about, I guess, the Sun Conference was pretty exciting. You still got a couple more games left. I know you said you didn't want to look too far ahead, but what do you like about Big 12 play? What do you like about this conference and the rivalries that come about it, and what do you like about playing those teams?
Big 12 play is like another beast. Like, it's like every game you have to step up to your 100% or it's not going to go your way. Like, you have to be ready because, you know, each game you're playing TCU, you're playing Texas Tech, you're playing Texas. Like, those are big time schools. And there's always, being from Texas, I have a lot of former teammates who are sprinkled at all of those schools. So then there's like that personal rivalry of like, well, I definitely want to beat you now. And I think just, you know, those are definitely hard, aggressive games. And, you know, those are definitely ones you want to come out on top of.
You know, we asked Grace this last week, and she actually had an interesting story about how her and Allie had to fight off a rodent problem at their apartments. But first of all, is your roommate Cammie?
Yes.
Okay, so kind of what interesting stories do you have from the home life, you know, being a college athlete, college student, outside of just soccer?
Oh, gosh. So we've kind of got an interesting dynamic in my house. We've got 3 people who play for the soccer team, and then we've got 1 girl who doesn't. And we're kind of all different personalities, but when we mesh, it's kind of craziness, but we have so much fun together. And we have 2 pets that are a part of the house. My cat has brought quite an interesting amount of entertainment to the house. So she climbs walls. And so when we were gone for a travel trip, the girl who was watching my cat sent me a picture, and my cat was touching the ceiling. She had climbed all the way up the wall and, yes, climbed into the ceiling. So that cat has, she's definitely made her mark on our house. She's an interesting, but honestly, our house is great. Like, I love, you know, it's different when you go from playing with somebody on the field to like living with them. And I think that we work so well together, and it's awesome.
Is outside of, and again, we ask all of the student athletes this, and they all say, well, we don't have enough, you know, in season, you don't have enough time because you have class and travel and practice and games and all of that good stuff. But maybe outside of season, or if you do find some free time, what do you like to do outside of soccer?
Honestly, I love to hang with my roommates. We love movies. We like to, you know, go to Bath and Body Works and look at candles. Like, we like to do small random things. I do also like to read. I am a big family person, so I will constantly, you know, call my mom, call my dad, call my sister, see how they're doing. I call my boyfriend, see how he's doing. And honestly, just spending quality time with people. I think that's definitely one of my biggest, you know, things to do outside of soccer.
So big readers, do you have a favorite series or anything like that?
Okay, so my favorite book of all time is Unbroken. It's the book with about Louis Zamperini and his journey. Favorite series of all times? I might have to go with the Clockwork series, which I'm a nerd, but it's a series that is kind of a prequel to the City of Bones series.
Okay, I know that. I've seen the movie City of Bones, but what is your favorite, I guess, movie, and then what's the best movie you've seen recently?
Favorite movie ever, like hands down, Imitation Game.
Okay.
Yeah, with Benedict Cumberbatch. That is by far my favorite movie. Favorite movie that I've seen lately? Honestly, I can't even think of a movie that I've seen lately. In our house, we've watched a lot of cheesy love movies that have kind of all blurred together, but that just hands down, that's got to be my favorite. I can't think of another one.
Nothing wrong with cheesy love movies. I watched You've Got Mail on Saturday, so I love that movie. But I love Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. But what overall, you know, are you looking forward to doing here in school? Kind of what's your major? What's the kind of the plan you want to do after soccer?
So I am majoring in mathematics with a concentration in secondary education. So basically, I take a lot of math courses, and then I have some teaching education courses sprinkled in there. And after college, my passion is teaching. So if possible, I want to teach AP Calculus at a high school, wherever that may be. But I also want to leave myself open to any other options if I decide maybe teaching isn't the way I want to go. I think a mathematics degree will definitely give me those opportunities.
We talked to Grace last week, she's getting a minor in coaching. Is that something, if you end up at a high school somewhere, that you would maybe potentially want to do, like maybe coach a soccer team?
You know, I don't know. I don't want to close any doors. I just kind of want to see where it goes. If I get there and I think, yes, that's what I want to do, then you do it. If I don't, then I won't. But I won't close any doors yet.
Just a couple minutes left here with you, and again, appreciate you taking out a few minutes. When you talk about women's sports and the growth of women's sports, the World Cup, where do you see your role, and how have you seen the growth, and how proud are you to be part of what seems to be a pretty rapid, big growth of women's sports here in America?
I think it's really cool. It's in a unique position to be in. Seeing the women win the World Cup for, the second time in a row now, I think that it really gives younger female athletes somebody to look up to. And, we had A.D. Franch. She was on the World Cup team, and she graduated from here. She played soccer here. And that's kind of cool just because normally you see a lot of those players graduating from Stanford, North Carolina, and seeing someone who graduated from Oklahoma State up on that roster, I think that's really cool. And so that gives people, on our team and maybe even some of the youth teams that come and watch our games, I think that gives at each level somebody new to look up to. And I think that that's really cool.
All right, last one from me. Do you have a favorite soccer club? Favorite soccer team, someone, and then separately, kind of someone that you've looked up to that maybe you've wanted to model your game after, or kind of used as a role model growing up?
So when Chelsea was sponsoring Solar, that kind of sparked my love for the Chelsea Football Club. So yes, I am a fan, and I always loved watching Eden Hazard. I think his game is incredible. His skill, his finesse. I think it's unmatched, and he was definitely one of my favorite players to watch.
Perfect. It only took us 3, and we finally found a Chelsea fan. We're done here. Anything else, Jordan?
That's all I got.
All right. We'll end it on the good note there. Unfortunately, Eden Hazard has left Chelsea, but we'll get over that. But anyways, Hannah, appreciate you taking out a few minutes, and thanks for being our third soccer guest on the Cowgirl Coverage podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
There you go. Jordan and Jordan will finish things up right after this. Welcome back to the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. Appreciate you joining us here for the second half of the podcast, and really appreciate Hannah Webb again. Jordan, normally I ask you this beforehand, but looking back at it, a couple highlights from that?
Yeah, I always love listening to kind of what we kind of started with last week with Grace, but the home life. But I did not know she was a mathematics major, which to me just sounds like a bunch of awfulness. She enjoys it. It looks like. I think she was in a hurry to go do a test or something afterward that she was talking to Coach about. But I think that was very neat to see that. You don't really see a mathematics major that often. In fact, she likes Eden Hazard. Was that the guy's name of Chelsea? So
Yeah,
Eden Hazard. So she I was happy to hear it, man. I'm a big Chelsea fan, so happy to hear that. Okay, Jordan, grill in the room. Cowgirls are 25th in the coaches poll after being just outside last week in the coaches poll. In the coaches poll, Penn State was 8th, right? 8th, up to 6th in some of the polls, but 8th in the poll that I'm talking about. And I'm all excited. I'm ready for this United Soccer Coaches poll to come out, and ready for this thing. We're going to ramp up Oklahoma State into the teens, and there you go. Maybe ahead of Penn State since you beat them on the road at their place, a team that now has like 3 or 4 losses and lost twice this weekend. And Oklahoma State is 25th. Yes, I'm pissed off about this. Oklahoma State was not rewarded at all for the win against Penn State. And what they did was they punished Penn State, which they should. Penn State lost twice this weekend, 3 times overall now. But you went to Penn State and won. And you move up like a handful of slots, 5 at the most. You're barely outside the top 30. And now you're 25th, and Penn State drops from 8 to 23. Come on. And again, I know, like Coach Carmichael said, like, and he was honest with Robert today. He said he looked at that and kind of scratched his head, like, how do we go there, beat them, and we're not ahead of them, and 2, we're barely into the top 25 after beating a top 10 team in every single poll imaginable on the road.
Yeah, I don't understand it, and it kind of reminds me of back in the spring with the Cowgirl softball team against Texas. They swept Texas, or won 2 out of 3, and still Texas maybe dropped 1 spot, was still ahead of the Cowgirls in the polls. It didn't make any sense at all. Even in the final week of the season, they're still ahead of OSU. Didn't make any sense at all. I don't want to go out and say there's a bias against Oklahoma State, but it's kind of hard to doubt it whenever you see things like this happen. You wonder, why do they do it that way when every other team in the world, if, Maryland, I know it's not Big Ten season, if they had gone on the road, if they were 29th and gone on the road and beat a top 10 Penn State team, they'd be 12 or 13 right now, not 25th.
And even again, and I'm with you with your comparison to that Texas series, but this is even, that Texas series was at Cowgirl Stadium. This was on the road. This is the Blue Blood. This is a national championship contender every single season. They've won countless Big Ten championships. You go on the road and you dust them. You dust them in the second half. It was a 2-1 game. It took you overtime. Yes, I understand that. But if you watched the game, Oklahoma State was the better team. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, there you go. That was my there you go. Anyways, we'll get to this tennis here and close things out. So, 5 tennis players individually have been recognized by the ITA here in the preseason, Jordan. And number 1 is Lisa Marie Rue, who last year snuck into the rankings for a while. There was just Marina Gwinhart and Katerina Streznikova, and obviously Katie was by far your number 1, and she was playing tremendously. And then Lisa started playing in the number 2 spot, and she was terrific. By the end of the season, made it into the top 100, which is what you have to do to be ranked by the ITA. She was ranked at the end of the season, rewarded here now as the top cowgirl here in the preseason at number 43. And then following Rue, Bunyawi Tamchaiwat is number 67. So you got a couple of players that are individually ranked. Again, probably a few others that are probably close. I know Catherine Gulaher last year struggled a little bit as a freshman in that 6 hole, but we know how good of a player she is. She was a blue chip recruit coming out of high school, and we know her quality. And we'll get to her in just a second in the doubles.
Yeah, and Catherine's somebody we saw last year come on immediately, and nothing fazed her. And that's something that you don't see from freshmen usually. Especially coming from the high school level straight into the top of the schedule that Chris Young has the Cowgirls play off the bat, and she was great. And the thing is, if you're listening at home, I know that they're the only 2 in individual or singles play, but Coach Young has to switch up a bit. We'll probably see some of these doubles ranked players also play some singles, but having 5 players on your team ranked either in doubles or singles in a sport where you start 6 individuals, that's pretty good.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And you probably have another doubles team that's going to be close, because we saw obviously we saw the quality of Bunyawi and Ayumi Miyamoto, who is a freshman as well. So, and then their best doubles player, CY pointed this out to us on the radio yesterday. Their best player is Daria Detkovskaya, the freshman from Ukraine, I believe she's from. She's their best doubles player. So whoever she gets paired with is probably going to be a pretty good doubles team too. And you bring all of that into focus, and this is probably going to be a pretty strong doubles team, 1 to 3, and we know how important that is to Coach Young, and when he's talking about building a lineup and the importance of that doubles point. We mentioned it so many times last spring.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that's he's hung his hat on his entire career here is the doubles point, and that's what took them all the way to the championship in 2016. I don't think they dropped the doubles point all year long, and that's how easy it is for your individuals, your singles players to get that doubles point, because you only got to win 3. Then you have to win all 4. You're not coming from behind, so it's nice to do that. And I just can't believe, because Daria, she's a freshman, right? She's coming in here. You have a lot of Woolpark. We'll talk about her in a second. You have Miyamoto as a freshman. It's just these freshman people. I know we talked about this class all year long since the spring, but this has got to be one of the most exciting times to be a Cowgirl tennis fan.
Between Alana Wolfberg and Ayumi Miyamoto, those 2 were the only 2 in the freshman class when it got ranked 4th in the country. And then you added Daria Detkovskaya and the other. Let me pull up the freshman here, Ryan Thompson, who is from Edmond, Oklahoma. So you add them, and you add that to the class, and this all of a sudden becomes a class that probably would have been ranked higher than 4th when everything's all said and done. So getting back to Alana Wolfberg, she is part of that doubles team that is ranked alongside Catherine Gulaher. And again, going back to Sofia Blanco, and Sofia and Vladi kind of got that number 1 doubles team into All-American status, and then Sofia comes back, and she nearly reaches All-American broken status with Catherine, and now Catherine comes back to kind of carry the torch, and she's going to be paired up with Alana Wolfberg to start. This is obviously, we can see this change. We had, I think Sophia probably was with 3 different partners over the course of last season, and she was ranked with 2 of them by the end of the season when everything was all said and done. So obviously this could change, subject to change, but this is pretty good news if you're Alana Wolfberg, who was the top recruit in the country coming into the season, to be paired up with someone that we know was the top recruit of her class a year ahead with Catherine. And if those two can kind of form a partnership, that could be formidable as we head into their future of the careers. You could potentially have this duo around 3 years total, which would be incredible.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, and that's just something that you're excited about if you're Chris Young, because this is the type of team and influx you needed. I know you had a lot of talent leave. This is the type you needed to reload to, because this is the year. This is the year you're hosting nationals this year. You want to be there, and this is the second year that it's not 16 more. It's not just, we make the Sweet 16, we'll be there. You have to be the top 8 to make it to nationals, so you got to make it one step further. I think this is what you needed. Players coming in here that we've already seen how they're doing already, even in the pro-ams and how that's gone. Just have it to be – that's the thing to me is how are you going to have it set up if you're Chris Young? Who are you going to pair with who? I know you have a lot of talent. You have a lot of tendencies with some of these players who like to play with other players, whether it's the long game or the short game. But who are you going to have paired up? And that's what I'm going to introduce to see in the spring.
No doubt. And then we mentioned Bunyawi and Ayumi Miyamoto. Those two were paired up at the 15K Invitational Tour up in Lawrence at the Pro Circuit, and they got to the semifinals. And I believe they had, I don't know if they had to qualify for that one or not. But yeah, impressive from those two. So again, you could have 3 pretty good doubles teams when we get to it. And by the way, like CY told us on the radio side of things yesterday, the recruiting class might not be done. Like he said, he might be looking to bring in a couple of players in January as well. So if you get a couple more reinforcements before the spring season, all of a sudden this is scary.
Yeah. I think I want to go back, and I might be wrong, but I think Kate Streshnikova was a late ad back in 2015. She came in around the December time, right before the spring season started, and that was obviously a huge to your program for the next 4 years. So if you get someone of her caliber, even better, added in late, this we were honestly saying that this is top 3 definitely recruiting class. If you get someone else like that, it'd be number 1.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull that up. That's join the Cowgirls in the spring. Yeah, Katerina Streznikova. So, no, you're right, man. I think if they do that, this all of a sudden becomes a team that maybe you expect to be in the top 8 in terms of seeds. And if you're in the top 8 seeded, you're going to be hosting all the way through. I mean, that means the super regionals will be at Stillwater as well. Greenwood Tennis Center, you keep it there. That's a big, big advantage for this team. We know that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. I think it's in Stillwater again this year. I'm trying to think of where Big 12s are, because I remember back in 2016, you had Big 12s here, you had regionals here, you had supers here, and then they didn't have supers back then, but then he went to Tulsa for nationals. So I think it'd be great if you had Big 12 tournament here as well. That'd be pretty awesome.
Big 12 championships, Stillwater, Oklahoma, Greenwood Tennis Center. So there you go. There's your answer on that. And my goodness, could be it could be a special season, man. It really could at the Greenwood Tennis Center. And obviously, everything that went into that was really, really tremendous. So I think that'll do it for us, Jordan. Again, fun conversation with Hannah Webb earlier. By the way, I just want to point this out. If anyone had listened to it, the point in the middle where she laughs, that was when right behind her was Coach Carmichael. So he's like, "Well, you want me to walk out, or I'm standing right behind you." So that was part of the interruption there. But yeah, fun conversation, as all of them are. I mean, we've had a ton of fun with JC Grace and Hannah Webb now.
Yeah, I always make sure, because either I'm always usually talking to a coach when I ask them about a player, and the player's staying right there, or a player asks about the coach, and coach is staying right there. I always make sure to ask, because they always have a good time laughing about it. But, I think we're going to talk to Julia Linhart next week, having a senior. That's who Hannah kind of, put up, nominated for the podcast next week, so I think it's going to be good.
Had JC, had Hannah, now going to have Julia Lenhart, had Grace Yoakum as well, but Lenhart, Webb, and Jones all captains. So we'll knock that out next week, and we'll see who Julia decides to nominate after that. It's kind of, that's almost the most fun part of the podcast. In fact, we might need to start recording it because that's kind of, well, who should I nominate? So good stuff there, Jordan. Episode 32, and appreciate you, man.
Yeah, just plugging right along.
There you go. Cowgirl basketball released their schedule. We'll talk about that next time. A lot of good stuff here as Cowgirl soccer continues. And my goodness, it never ends. It never ends here on the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. Episode 32 in the books here on the Triple Play Podcast Network.